Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to the Dot Digital and Zentso webinar on digital engagement and digital engagement scoring. So today's webinar is really going to cover the measurement of digital engagement and also trying to define what digital engagement is. A little bit about Zentso before we get going, and I'll let the guys from Dot Digital introduce themselves after this. But if you haven't heard of Zentso before, we are a CRM implementer, integrator, and services provider. We help to simplify CRM success. We've been working in the not-for-profit space for decades with associations, charities, unions, and we implement CRM solutions and we build add-ons for CRM solutions to fill gaps in the market. Today's agenda, we're going to be covering essentially what is digital engagement, how can we measure it, how should we view it to get value from it. We're going to cover things from perhaps a more back office and CRM perspective first, and then look at an email communications perspective with Dot Digital and how Dot Digital helps with that engagement. We're going to talk about supporting member experiences and donor experiences also, and the importance of data sitting behind your measurement of engagement. So very quickly, who the speakers are today. I'm Jyoti. I'm one of the founders of Zentso, and I'll be presenting along with Ganesh, who's one of our senior consultants at Zentso. Rudy and Phil are going to join us from Dot Digital. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves very quickly?
Yeah, thanks, Josie. I'm Rudy, and I currently get executive at Dot Digital. Really looking forward to presenting some tactics on how you can keep members engaged today.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm Phil from Dot Digital. So I've been at Dot Digital for 13 years in November, so quite a long time. And yeah, working with unions, membership organizations, associations. So hopefully we can add some value to the webinar today for you guys.
Great. Thanks, guys. So I guess the first question we need to answer is, what is digital engagement? Now, I'm aware that we have a range of attendees in the audience today, some from associations and membership organizations, others from non-profits and charities, some maybe from unions. And there are slight differences when we talk about digital engagement of these particular stakeholders. For perhaps the purposes of simplicity, I'll focus maybe slightly more on a member-based journey today, but I'll try and then make it applicable also to either activists or donors for other not-for-profits as well. So I guess the first thing we should think about is what is engagement? And engagement is normally interest, attention, or interaction. And obviously digital engagement is that interest and attention and interaction through digital channels. But importantly for us, these things are always driven by some kind of purpose. Some kind of purposes where the stakeholder wants to do or get something from your organization. And it's a little different from social engagement. A lot of the ways in which people engage with digital is social media at the moment. The type of engagement we're talking with is a little different, because I see social engagement as just going all out to grab your attention. It's almost, you might say, a form of theft. It's stealing your attention away from you and not really giving you anything of great value back, apart from maybe lots of advertising. The type of engagement that we're talking about is very much purpose driven, because as not-for-profits, we all have a purpose, a mission. And so it's you could say it's more mission driven, our engagement. And the channels that we typically use are websites, email, SMS, social. We do use social. We use mobile apps. We use bots. Increasingly, AI is becoming a mechanism, a digital channel of engagement as well. when we look at digital engagement, it's important not to see digital engagement as something static. Digital engagement is dynamic. It's a movement from one place to another. And we can think of this movement as a path, as a journey. So I think we're all familiar with the concept of member journeys, donor journeys, paths that people take through our organization when they interact with us. And we can take any one of these journeys and break it down into a number of small steps. So every journey it's a very Zen thing, constitutes a number of small steps. But the big point here is that with digital, you can actually signpost the journeys that you want someone to take. And if someone's starting as a visitor, coming into a visitor, as your organization at your website, they're knocking at the door of the website, you can signpost what is the next step you want them to take. How would they get from being a visitor to being a full member or to being a leader in your organization? You can signpost these journeys so that that becomes their pathway. And we can look at these journeys that you want people to take as journeys of deepening engagement. So what you're seeing on the screen is a typical example of maybe a member-led journey where someone starts from a very low level of engagement with your organization and ends up being a major stakeholder in your organization. And that might be a pathway that someone takes. The important thing is part of digital engagement is to allow people to see those pathways and to understand what their engagement pathway with your organization is. So in order to build an engagement pathway, there are a couple of key stepping stones that we can use. And I normally look at these at three different levels. The first is really a strategic planning level. And at this level, we want to identify who are the strategic audiences that we want to engage with our organization. So we need to identify these, and I'll talk about how to create things called personas in order to define those target audiences. The second level at which we can look at these things is on the what I would call the management planning level, where we are defining what journeys we want these target audiences to undertake. Where do we want them to go, and what do we want them to achieve at each level? And then the third level is the operational level. At what are the processes we want these audiences to actually engage in to transform them from being at one point of the journey to being at the next point of the journey. So that's defining a process-driven thing. So starting with that first step, that the target audiences in the strategic planning level. The important thing here is to think member first or donor first. And what does that journey look like from the member perspective? So we've got to create these target audiences. Very often, if you've engaged with a web agency on branding or something like that, they'll talk about personas and target audiences. They may even give these target personas names and make them very real for you. So here's the kind of example of what we might sort of call these persona, these target groups. So you might have professionals, committees, visitors, members, various things. But actually, we want to really get inside people's head when we're planning these journeys of engagement. This is obviously classic marketing, but we might want to actually create a persona that looks something like this, where we give a persona a name. This person is Sarah. She's in the new member target group. She's 32 to 42. She's the head of sales and marketing. She's uses Facebook. She likes the BBC. She reads Hello magazine. We won't hold that against her. And maybe some charities she supports. So we build up this full persona of the person. And this is obviously a quite detailed persona. We don't have to go into that level of detail. The important thing with getting results from measuring digital engagement is to keep it simple. So here's an example we did with Law Society of Scotland. We created with them 4 personas. Very, very simple. A trainee member, a junior qualified member, senior member, and a specialist member. All very, very easy to measure in data. So this does not have to be complicated. And actually, the more simple you keep things, particularly in the beginning, the more likely you are to have some success with your results. So that's just an example of a persona. So with our personas, we tend to want to be able to define them using our CRM system. And the reason for that is because all your profiling data is normally sitting in your CRM system as your master system. So we want to be able to have queries, reports on real-time data that can easily define these personas. And these personas really become your marketing segments that you want to take people on through that engagement journey. As I said, start simple with these things. It's very important to start super simple and make these personas quick and easy for staff to change. So if you want to change a criteria from someone being a member for 4 years to 5 years, make it easy for staff to amend and change these things in the beginning, because you are going to learn and make adjustments as you go in terms of what personas you want to deal with and what actually defines those personas. Nobody gets this right first time. The important thing here is also to make sure that those personas are available through an API. Your CRM system will normally have an API, but this comes into play when you're integrating your CRM system with your digital channels. So you want to make it available to your content management system, the web experience. So if somebody's logged in, they can get a unique member experience based on those personas. You want to make it available to your email marketing service. We're going to look at how we do that with Dot Digital later, so that you have your marketing segments in real time in your email marketing tool. And the same goes with SMS, same goes with social media, to provide personalization of those experiences. So once we've defined those personas, what we need to do now is work out what is it going to take somebody from being a visitor to a delegate on my website, to define the process that will make that micro journey, or that small step of the journey, happen. And then we need to prompt members to actually take that step. So it's not going to happen just by itself. We need to help members to make it happen. And when we define each of these micro journeys or steps in the process, there's 3 things to consider. The first thing is obviously the outcome, and how do you, where do you want someone to progress to? But then once you've got that down, you need to consider, what is the need of the person or the stakeholder, the donor, the member? What do they want when they're coming to your website? Okay, so what is their needs? That's understanding the persona. Then the second thing is, what are you offering? What can they get to fulfill that need when they're coming to your website? And the third thing is to say, what are they going to give you in exchange for that? So this is quite transactional. And we need to think of this from the member, from the donor's perspective. What does that transaction look like? And how are we going to essentially signpost that transaction so it becomes quite simple? So we might look at that journey and break that journey down into a number of steps like this. In this one, I've just taken a person from web visitor to being a leader in the organization. And at each step, we want to answer the questions: what do I want? What do I get? And what am I prepared to give in order to get this? So let's say someone comes to the website. They want information. They get the website. What do they give? At this stage, they give their attention. Okay, there's not a lot else we can do at this point. But then someone might want to, they've read about some educational program, so they want education. What do they get? You can offer them an event. And what do they give you? They might give you their identity, their email for marketing purposes, or they might give you some financial fee from attending that event. So now that's the next step in engagement. Further on, they may want some member services. So in exchange for membership, they pay a membership fee. They may want peer support. So there may be a social network that they give their opinions on. As volunteers, they may give their time. And as leaders, they might give their passion to the organization. So you can see quite clearly at each step where there's 3 levels at which engagement is happening at each of these steps. So, it's very clear how 6 levels quickly becomes 18 points to possibly measure in terms of engagement. So that's why I suggest really starting simple with how you define those personas, because things mushroom very quickly with the number of possible measurement points that we have. So let's just take some practical examples of simplicity. I'll talk about the middle one first, the Law Society of Scotland, with those 4 personas we defined. What we did with them is we just created a simple reminder block on the member homepage or the member portal. When they logged in, they got a reminder. Here are some things you should consider doing, and we listed personalized items for them to do based on their persona, and then we listed a number of events that they could attend, also based on their personas. So it's very simple. 2 things: reminders and events for them, and all personalized on persona. It doesn't even have to be that complex. So there's 2 other examples: Chartered Quality Institute and Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons. The first step in this can be as simple as creating member and non-member content, and creating gated content. So if someone's not a member, you say, in order to access this content, you must become a member. So in order to get access to content, that's what the person gets, they have to give a membership fee. So that's a member service. So things can be very simple here, and don't make it more complex than it needs to be. I'm going to say this a few times during the presentation. So I'm going to hand over very quickly to Ganesh to talk a little bit about how data underpins all of what we're talking about in theory, in these personas and measurement parts of things, because data is really critical to the success of digital engagement. Ganesh?
So your data is likely to be coming from multiple different sources, and if we were just to look at marketing specifically, marketing is often multi-channel. So you're likely to be using a whole different host of third-party apps or software to carry out your marketing. And obviously you have your website too, where you'll be getting data. You might have Google Analytics as well on top of that. So you might have quite a big stack where your data is actually coming from. What often happens is, because of these multiple different data sources, you'll end up with data silos, which makes it really quite difficult to measure engagement because your data is in different places. So the best way to make the most out of your engagement data is to have a single source of truth. And how do you get there? So you get there by having a dedicated CRM system, and then beginning to explore how you might connect all these third-party apps and other pieces of software that you might be using and your website, connect it to your CRM so that all the data is actually feeding back into your CRM and against the individuals who are making those interactions. A lot of the times, most of the major third-party apps and software providers will have out-of-the-box plugins that you can configure relatively easily to connect to your CRM. Most third-party apps and software providers will have a plugin for the major CRMs. Besides that, sometimes they will also have an API connection if you needed more of a custom connection, more of a custom data flow. So that's also possible. So you have generally two options: either a custom connection using code and API, or you can explore looking at an out-of-the-box solution. Generally speaking, it's always simpler to maybe explore the out-of-the-box plugins and see how that can meet your needs. And then if there really is something that you require that is not met by the out-of-the-box plugins, then you can maybe look at a custom solution that's using the API. But the main crux of it is that the goal is to get your data into one place. And that has quite a big positive business impact in that your data is going to be more useful, more valuable if it's actually in one place where you can do all your reporting. And most importantly, it allows you to measure the engagement of the individual, and it gives you more of a 360 of your of the interactions that your members or donors or prospects are having with your organization. So it might be that you have emails being measured in one app, and then you might have an event booking system where your event bookings are taking place in another place. So if you bring all of this information in, what you can do is actually measure all of the engagement all together to produce a score, and then you can segment on top of those scores as well. So you get much more of a 360 of your audience. So how does this actually look in your CRM? So we've got some images that we can show you. So generally speaking, there's two sort of different methods to engagement scoring. And just generally, engagement scoring is just attributing value to a certain interaction, and different interactions will always be differ in value, and that's normally defined by you in the business and what you think is most valuable and what you think is less valuable. So the first method is more of an absolute approach, which is just assigning a score to a particular interaction. So, for example, you might have an email open, for instance, you might score that 5 points. You might have event attendance, you might score that 10 points. Someone might do a piece of CPD, you might give that 25 points. Or you might have someone who's actually speaking at an event, and for that you might give a score of 75 or something like that. So it really varies, and you can define that completely. With this absolute approach, as you can see on the right underneath in the engagement tab, you'll see that there's a little chart which is giving you a sum of the score. So that all that's doing is just adding up all the interactions that you've assigned scoring to, and then giving you one general score. This is a relatively simple way of maybe starting out, or a simple way of doing engagement scoring, but some of the cons of doing this, or the major con of doing this, is your score is always going to be changing because it is a sum. So if you were to segment on top of this and you wanted to place individuals into particular categories of engagement, those categories will always have to change. Scores always going to increase. So your categories are not going to be consistent. So it's a moving target effectively. The other more complex or more well-rounded approaches is to use percentile scores. And that's effectively a similar sort of concept where you have a weighting that's attributed to the different interactions that the individual is having with you. However, we condense those interactions into a score out of 100. So what you end up with is one score out of 100. And this makes it a lot easier for you to produce categories of engagement that you can slot these individuals into. So on the screen before, you saw that percentile against an individual, and on this screen here, you're seeing your categories as a general dashboard. So an overall view of the engagement that all of your members or donors are having with you, and they're placed into engagement categories. As you can see, you might have like a user or a participant, a connector, contributor, a leader. So you can see what proportion of your audience is highly engaged, what proportion is somewhat engaged and what proportion is not very engaged. And then what you can do with this information is store it against the individuals. Like for instance, here you can see there's an at-risk category and a highly engaged category. This is information that you can store against your individual contacts or individuals within your database. And what you can do with that, if your systems are connected, is push that information into your marketing tools. Like for instance, you might have an email marketing tool. And when you push that information in, you can actually use that to target your marketing a little bit more effectively. So your entire engagement segmenting is actually carried out within the CRM. And like I say, because in an ideal world, all your data is coming into the CRM, the score it's a much richer, more valuable score because it's based on criteria that you define and that you've weighted based on the interactions that you think are the most valuable or require scoring. Yeah, so in terms of how we've done it, we have, as an example, developed a tool called Scores, which works on this percentile method. And what it allows you to do is to query any data that you want and then assign it a weighting that you've defined. Again, I'll mention that the weighting will differ because all of the digital touch points are not equal. So you might weigh something more heavier than something else. For instance, like attending an event, it might be more heavily weighted to just maybe a website click or something like that to a specific page on your website. All this contributes to a percentile score for the individual or organization. So it just condenses it all down, all the interactions down to a score out of 100. And then from there, you can create your segments and your categories of engagement. And as I mentioned, all of this information, you can view it as a more general, at an organizational level, and at the more granular individual level as well. And like I say, all this information, because it sits in your CRM, you can move it around to different places. Like let's say, for instance, if you're using Dot Digital, you can merge this information into Dot Digital and then use that when you're creating your lists or segments and things like that. Equally, they work quite well together, so you can go from Dot Digital to CRM as well to add to the weighting and things like that. Yes, so I don't know, Josie, if there's anything more you might want to add.
I'm just conscious of time. I want to let the Dot Digital guys speak. Okay. So just very quickly to wrap up, it's really important to measure digital engagement because it's very difficult to improve what you can't measure. But you know, it can be key in terms of retention because it's very easy with engagement to recognize people who are at risk of leaving. If you're under engaged as a donor or a member, you're likely to not come back again or not renew. So that's one key thing. On the other side of the scale, it's also easy to identify leaders in the organization and who are the potential people that can help your mission. And in the middle, it's very easy to identify where people are in a journey and what are the next steps that they need to take in order to progress to being further engaged with the organization. The measurements and the way in which we measure is different for every single organization we work with. You might have some strategic goals, but the measurement of digital engagement allows you to change tactics halfway through a campaign or a financial year or something like that, because you can see what's working and what's not in terms of what you're doing quite easily with this measurement. So you can change tactics halfway through and adjust what you're doing as an organization. And obviously increase your reach and visibility. So I was going to just do a general Q&A now. I think we'll keep the general questions right until the end of the session, and we'll open up general questions. So just either make a note of your questions or put them in the chat, and we'll address them at the end of the session. But I'd like to hand over now to the Dot Digital folks so that they can talk about how Dot Digital enhances and enacts the member engagement side of things.
Perfect, thanks guys. So yeah, now that we've worked really hard to collect the data and to connect our systems, how do we delight our members? Ultimately, we want to go through some simple tactics to get today, which will be 5 tactics to increase member engagement and delight your members. So I'm Phil, introed earlier, Senior Enterprise Account Executive, and joined by Rudy. As well.
Sorry, got stuck on mute there, but yeah, nice to meet you, and yeah, looking forward to presenting the tactics back to you guys.
Perfect. So I think Rudy's going to kick off with the first tactic, which is going to be getting to know your members. Then I'm going to go through tailoring the message. I'm going to get a little bit more personal after that, and embrace automation. And then we'll finish off with jumping clearly on the AI bandwagon with everybody else. So over to you, Rudy.
Perfect. Thanks, Phil. Yeah, getting to know. Well, we know that people buy from brands that they like, so we can reposition this for the membership sector or non-for-profits and confidently say that people join organisations that they trust, believe in, and empathise with. And the best way to build trust is to take the time to get to know your audience on a personal level, which can only realistically be done by collecting their data. The first stage of the process is threefold. So who are you going to collect data from? What will you collect and how will you collect it? Who do you want to collect your data from? It's not just new and potential sign-ups. It's great for those contacts to come in, but don't forget to keep getting to know people that are already part of your database, already donors, already members as well. Like every relationship, the more you nurture that bond, the more you find out about each other and the deeper the connection you can build. What data do you need? Depending on what channels that you plan to reach out on, as a bare minimum to stay in touch, you do want email address. Email marketing does remain king, but phone number can be worth its weight in gold, as channels like SMS and WhatsApp have a 98% open rate. Also, postal address can be a great way to deliver tangible experiences that cut through the noise. You need to treat this person's data as a commodity. It does have a value. If someone in the street asked you to give you their email address or your email address, you'd probably laugh at them. But if they gave you a voucher for your favorite restaurant in return, you'd probably take them up on that. So the more data you ask for, the higher value the exchange needs to be. So while it makes sense to start with contact data, over time you'll build on that. So preferences, potentially birthdays, holidays they like or celebrate, and also jobs that they do. How will you collect it? Anywhere and everywhere you can. Collecting great data is about finding the right channel at the right moment to ask for it. So looking at a give and get approach, offer access to something, as Jotty mentioned, maybe additional content or maybe areas of the membership that may not be accessible without actually sharing some additional data as well. So looking at smart data capture, the essentials are definitely your first name, email address, mobile, potentially company. As a secondary, we definitely want to start to prioritize data like date of birth, the city that they're from, interests and channels. And then when do you want to capture this? Definitely at subscription stage or any other sign-ups, and offer incentives for additional data. Looking to actually centralize your data. The more data you can collect, the better that experience that you can create for your members, but only as if those pools of data speak to each other. So a bit like what Jotty said, having all of that data in one place, allowing you to use it, understand your audience, and then create a joined up journey for them. The first phase of making the magic happen is about capturing it. But the second phase is actually capturing it correctly and using it with care. It's not news to anyone in the room that data is a privilege and comes with permissions. So at the point of collection, you do want to explicitly state the reason for actually collecting that information. So leave your email address so we can update you with news and success, leave your phone number so we can reach out via text and WhatsApp, and then potentially share your date of birth with us so we can give you a gift or a thank you message on your birthday. But an extremely overlooked part of data collection is preferences. This empowers the subscriber or donor to know that they're actually in control of when and how you communicate with them. So using preferences is a really great way to build trust with your audience as well. And if your audience is taking the time to give you their data and confirm their interests, definitely show your gratitude by using it to give them a personalized experience.
Absolutely. And that's where tailoring the message comes in, because, you know, it's easier said than done to tailor the message. So how do we tailor the message? You know, we talk about personalization in email campaigns. We talk about personalization across channel, across SMS, across website, but it's quite difficult to do. So what's the first step that you can take to do that? Segmentation. We've worked really, really hard to collect all this data. We've asked for permission for this data. We want to use the data. We talk about integration. How do we get the data into our marketing automation tool? You know, we've got many integrations with Dot Digital, from Microsoft Dynamics to Salesforce, and we also work really, really close with Zentso. So we also have the cloud tools piece as well. So if you've got any other platforms like IMIS, for example, or other industry-specific CRMs, we can get the data out. But you know, it's not always the easiest way to actually start to treat your customers personable. You know, there's lots of holes in data. So we've worked hard to collect the data. I speak to membership organizations all the time. It's like, we've got loads of data, but we don't trust the data. We're not 100% if it's the correct data. So what we can start to do is we can start to use tools like RFM, recency, frequency, monetary. So everybody's got an interaction with your website. Everybody's got an interaction with your email, whether that be open clicks, website visits. Maybe you've got an online store. Maybe you do merchandising. So everybody's got a purchase behavior. So we've got some really easy tools in Dot Digital that you can use called RFM, which is recency, frequency, monetary. And we actually automatically will split up your database into different types of cohorts. So on the right-hand side, you can see here we've got recent, loyal, champions, need nurturing, high potential. So we could really quickly and easily surface some low-hanging fruit that you can send campaigns to, and then you're segmenting automatically. You're treating that person in the way that they want to be treated. They need nurturing, nurture them, invite them to an event, send them your latest blog article. If they're a champion, treat them like a champion, ask them for a review, make sure they come into the next conference, treat them a little bit more personal. Maybe they get a little note from the CEO or from the marketing manager themselves as a personal touch. So it's all about sending the right message to the right people at the right time with the right content, and ultimately on the best channel for them. So not a lot of member organizations are doing this. You know, we talk about this all the time. Probably about 16% of emails are triggered throughout the membership organizations that we work with, and 84% are one-off. So they're one-off campaigns, batch and blast. We want to get away from batch and blast. What's the first step that you could take to get away from batch and blast? A welcome email. Really simply, somebody becomes a member, thank them, send them an email, say thank you for becoming a member, can we find out your preferences, and take them through a journey. Maybe check back to CRM, have they logged into the portal? They've not logged into the portal. Send them another email, say, hey, notice you're not logged into the portal yet, here's your details, here's the support team's details if you need any help. That's a welcome journey. So ultimately that welcome journey is going to increase the engagement. It's one of the most valuable campaigns there is, and it's got one of the most highest engagement rates of any campaign that we see throughout the member org. And if you can't do any of this, you know, you're finding it difficult and you're still thinking, do you know what, the data's not right, we're not trusting any integrations, go and speak to Zentso. Zentso have the tools to get that data in. And if you're still worried, we can use AI. We can use send time optimization. So we can send an email based off the last time that person opened an email from you as a membership organization. So if they're checking their emails on their way to work, that's when they like to check their emails. Maybe at lunchtime, they check their emails. Maybe they're looking at your website. Use web behavior and AI to actually trigger a campaign when they're active and they're engaging with your brand or your org. So why should we segment and why does it matter? So some stats here, the DMA, 760% increase in revenue if you segment. So if you're doing batch and blast, go away after this webinar and think, how can I segment? What's the easiest way that I can do this? Foresters, 30% high conversion rates for those who segment. So, these are industry leading experts that are saying segment, segment, segment. And we've got some of our own customers in the membership space that's seen a 4,000% increase in membership sign up just by segmenting. Who is that? It's Kew Gardens. And what do they do? So really simple tactic. They've got a few different streams. They've got the membership, obviously, which is a driver, the key revenue driver for them, but they also do events. They've obviously got the Raw Botanical, and they've got retail as well. So they do merchandising. So they were really, really struggling to actually identify key cohorts and trying to increase revenue across all of these different cohorts as well, like the memberships, the events, and the retail. And actually, that's a really, really simple thing. So actually at sign up, they asked, can we get your postcode? So they asked for that data and told people what we're going to do with that data. And we're actually going to create 5 key segments. So we've got local to Kew, we've got London area, we've got Southeast, we've got UK, and we've got international. So just by taking that postcode, we're able to really, really easily segment into those key cohorts. So what did that mean? We could do targeted campaigns, but then we could also use dynamic content. So for the international or the UK, they all got the retail space. So on the left-hand side, they all got a retail push. You visited, you've given us your postcode, why don't you buy online? And then if you look at the right-hand side, the guys that are local or in London, they got invited to events. They got invited to local personal events to really engage them. Ultimately, if you've been to the Royal Botanical as an international visitor, you're probably not going to come to a local event, but you might buy some merchandise on the left, but ultimately they wanted to get the guys that are local to them to the event again and to the events. So what did that mean? So some pretty impressive numbers here. On the retail space, it was around 1,700% increase in revenue for retail, about 4,000% increase in membership signups, and the open rate was absolutely phenomenal at 62%. So, what should you start doing? As I said, it's quite simple tactic. Go away, have a look at your data. Speak to Zentso if you don't trust your data. Get your data into your email marketing platform. Ask your email marketing platform, have you got RFM? Do you have lead scoring? We have a postcode. What can we do? And if all else fails, maybe just have a look at the engagement rates. So could we have non-engaged, high engagement, medium engagement, and start to treat the customers a little bit differently? And while we're on engagement benchmarks, we actually have our own global benchmark report, which details a lot of the things that I'm talking about today. So if anyone wants to download that, jump on the website and you'll go to the global benchmark report and grab that, and we can send that through after. But a little bit more about getting personalization, which is a bit of a game changer, Rudy.
Yeah, 100%. And the thing is, personalization isn't just a feature or a new gimmick. It is completely essential now. And one of the things that we see, we've got a lot of stats around this, lots of different organizations are measuring it, but 71% of consumers actually expect a personalized experience. I'll go on to this a bit more in a minute, but a lot of people, personalization means something different to them. So something that we always ask, what does it mean to you? Some people are still stuck on the hi first name in an email, which could be taken a lot further than that now. But 84% of consumers expect brands to deliver consistent personalization across all channels. So not just on your emails, but across SMS, maybe mobile app, and also the website for 100%. 75% of consumers are more likely to purchase from brands that deliver personalized experiences. So can you get to know your audience before they're a member, start to personalize that experience at that point, and then give them an even further personalized experience once they are signed up for memberships? But the old way, there used to be an excuse not to personalize. It was too difficult to get right. Customer data might be stored in spreadsheets and all over the place, and you could end up saying hi first name or hi do not contact, which people definitely don't want. But those days are something of the past. And the new way is using a platform like Dot Digital or sometimes other personalization and email platforms. But it stops these mistakes from happening because you've got all of your data in a succinct order and in the right place, but also allowing you to deliver that journey and personalization across multiple channels. Mobile personalization is essential as well. So looking at different channels, are you looking at different devices as well? But web personalization is really the untapped opportunity. So your opportunity to stand out really is with web. 66% of brands aren't even using popovers. For you, it might be the initial popover for someone that's not a member, but you can continue to provide personalized popovers for people that are members. So instead of asking them to sign up, it might be that you provide them with an event or something along those lines. 71% of websites ignore your location. A huge one, 73% don't actually collect mobile numbers, so not allowing you to personalize across SMS or WhatsApp. And another one is 90% of businesses don't actually use personalized recommendations either. So a lot of people think of this as being a product, but it could be an event recommendation, it could be an article recommendation as well. So just making sure that your audience is constantly getting the most relevant and personalized content for them. 3 reasons to use cross-channel personalization. Your customers or members, donors are expecting it at this point. The second is it does deliver results. And the third, in a market where a lot of people aren't using it yet, you will 100% stand out. A few key metrics that we can look at here, but using fresh relevance, but what is now under the Dot Digital umbrella, 129 times return on investment is across fresh relevance and Dot Digital as a standard. We see 41% increase in revenue per email, and then just another key one, 25% year-on-year increase for bound and cart revenue. So a lot of you will be doing events. How many of those individuals are attempting to register for that event and sort of leaving it there? From there, looking at automation, I know mentioned by Josie a little bit, but really this is where you can take it to the next step. You can have your content personalized, but how can we automate it? But 63% of companies using marketing automation platforms outperform their competitors. And another really key metric is marketers using automation flow software have seen their number of conversions increase by up to 77% as well. How do you start, or what do you do to start? Implement onboarding programs. We've looked at this as well with what Phil said about welcome emails whenever someone converts on your site. Are you doing this at the moment would be the first question to ask yourself, and then looking to actually get that set up. Change your automation programs based on engagement as well. So something that the guys have touched on, measuring engagement, looking at scoring. Are you providing different automation programs and journeys based on that engagement? And then if they are engaged, do you want to send them a follow-up sooner? And then just another case study, one of our customers, Action for Children, some of the great results they saw from implementing automation journeys were 40% average open rate across their automations, 30% click rate, average click rate, and they actually raised 325,000 based on one campaign raising donations using Dot Digital's automation.
Perfect. And like a lot of this seems quite scary. How do we get there? Well, perfect. We've got AI now, and that's how we get there. So all the things that we've talked about doing and all of the actions that we've talked about within this webinar are all really easy to do. And we've got AI tools. We've got our own trademarked AI tool called Winston AI. So that will do lots of different things. So it's generative AI. So it will help you create subject lines. So you could sit there all day long and say, I want to start split testing. I've got to write 5 or 6 different subject lines. And what Winston AI will do is it will actually learn your tone of voice as an org, and it will start to suggest better subject lines for you guys. Not to say that they might be the best. You may think of a better one, but try to use the AI tools to kind of think outside the box and give you more ideas. And if you've not got something like Winston AI, you know, you can use Copilot, will do the same thing for you. The predictive analytics and recommendations, that we can use is all AI powered. The segmentation, the RFM, the ERFM, it's all AI powered, and the cross-channel send time optimization as well, when we talked about sending an email to somebody when they're most likely to open it. So quite a lot of tools with AI that you could start utilizing within our platform, or you could obviously use Microsoft tools like Copilot as well. It doesn't need to be within your actual marketing automation tool. You can still utilize AI there too. And just a couple of my favorite tools that you could do, which doesn't necessarily have to be Digital, but it could be subject line optimization, so split testing and starting to use AI to suggest different subject lines. Gone are the days where you've got to, book out half a day to think of, 5 or 6 different engaging subject lines. AI can do it for you. And my most favorite at the moment is a one-click SMS conversion. So you guys have spent a lot of time creating engaging copy for your email campaigns. Ask AI to make it an SMS. Say, can you make this a shortened SMS within this character count? And that will automatically shorten those email copy campaigns down into an SMS campaign for you as well. So what should you start doing? Use AI tools. It's not, don't be scared of AI. Should be using AI, on a daily basis, whether that be an AI tool that's within your marketing stack, or whether that's just using the Microsoft tools like Copilot. And actually, don't let it replace what you're doing. Just embrace those tools and let those existing tactics that you're already doing add to when you use AI, and that will streamline your workflow and allow you to become more creative. Available in Digital. If anyone wants to have a look at our AI tools or speak to Rudy about personalization or web personalization, then please feel free to get in touch. You can drop an email to Mark Cooper, who's our Zentso relationship manager, or you can come and see us at MemberWise. We'll be there on the 14th at the Digital Excellence. So please do come along and say hello. Anything to add, Rudy?
No, that's it. Brilliant. Thanks, Phil.
No problem.
Thank you, guys. Let's maybe open up the floor to some questions. We've got a couple of questions in the chat that I can address first. The first one was from Victoria. She's asking, how does this work with Dynamics? I know we'd shown screenshots of Salesforce and IMS. So the scoring tool that we showed does work with Dynamics. It'll work off, I think it's marketing lists in Dynamics. So there's obviously some prerequisites we spoke about. First of all is getting that single source of truth, getting all the data that you need to measure for engagement into your CRM database, and then using the queries, reports, or in Dynamics marketing lists to define those engagements. And then we have our own proprietary middleware platform. We call it Cloud Tools. I've put a link to that in the chat. And we use that to crunch the numbers and to then push a consolidated percentile and total absolute score for engagement back against your contact record, either in Dynamics or whatever your CRM is. As long as a CRM has the capacity to create lists and have those lists available through an API, and for us to push those aggregated scores back in through the API, we can make this work with pretty much any CRM that is out there. So we try and be a bit CRM agnostic, but although we showed you examples on certain CRMs. Ryan is asking, how do we get the scoring tool, please? So please reach out to Zentso for this. You can either contact us by the website or just info@zentso.com, and we'll get back to you, and we'll show you the tool, and we can talk through how you would make it work in practice to get value for your organization. Brian's asking, can you please share the engagement dashboards and reports that you showed before so we can use that as a platform to build on? Absolutely. Yeah, we can share those with you. We'll get those over to you. Chris is asking, how do you recommend connecting engagement scores to desired outcomes like renewals, new memberships, or donations in general, or through a scoring tool? It's a bit of a more tricky situation. that we need to consider. Ganesh, if you were to connect the recommended engagements or connecting engagement scores to, for example, renewal rates or new member acquisitions, is that something that you've done for any clients so far, or how would you recommend doing that?
It's not something we've done before, but off the top of my head, presuming the renewals and the memberships are taking place in the CRM system, being produced by the CRM system, I would recommend using a scoring tool so you can query that information and include that along with all the other bits of data that you're assigning some kind of value to. And you may also want to do negative values as well for renewals that are not that are not for people who've not renewed as well, for instance. So yeah,
I think it's very difficult to start measuring engagement on new signups because you don't have a lot of data on new signups at that point. But connecting renewal rate with or engagement score with likelihood to renew is I think something that the relationship that can be made. So you might attribute the fact that someone renews a very high score in terms of engagement scoring. So, and the fact that they've renewed once would mean that the likelihood of them renewing again is very high. So that would increase that would increase on their engagement scores. And obviously, low engagement is clearly indicative that someone is much less likely to renew because there's no value proposition in them renewing. They're not getting value from the organization, it seems. A similar thing goes for donations also. I've got a fundraising background, and I know that the first donation is very difficult to do engagement scoring on, but the likelihood to give again can be related to the person's engagement score. If the person is receiving and opening newsletters and emails or whatever, you're likely to be able to develop them as a donor because they're engaged with the organization, because they see those things. The other things that the Dot Digital guys talked about was the personalization. If you're able to personalize messages based on engagement, that also increases the likelihood of them actually doing some engagement, increasing the engagement score, and likelihood of developing as a donor, as a member, and likelihood of renewing or increasing their donation, maybe becoming a regular donor. So there are similar journeys with donors and members, and I think there are some correlations, but at the very beginning stages of people's journeys, because you don't have a lot of data about people, it's very difficult to sort of attribute those scores to actions. Apart from if journeys involve things like somebody attending an event, first of all, where you can measure engagement. If you've got data points at, for example, an event, which session someone's attended, or how they've voted, how they've interacted at an event, the more data points you have on an engagement score, the more likely you'll be able to utilize that to determine a future action. If that makes sense, Chris. That's a very good question.
I think it also comes down a little bit to the engagement categories and having them well defined and understanding what they actually mean for your business as well.
Okay, good. Chris is asking another question. He's asking, are there any accelerants that can quickly move people through the digital micro journey or even bounce them from an early point to a higher point? So yeah, the answer is yes, and we didn't cover that. The Dot Digital folks covered it a little bit, and that's really incentivization. You need to incentivize people to move. So for example, if you wanted to take someone from being a visitor to your website, and normally this is anonymous, although with Google Analytics, less anonymous. But if you wanted to take someone from being, say, a visitor to a delegate, or if they were a member that was under-engaged and you wanted them to become an engaged member, typical incentives might be discount codes for events, or offer someone 50% off for the next conference, or here's your offer of 20% book token on one of your publications. So those type of digital incentives work really well to take people from one step to another. So the important thing when you're thinking about incentivization is always think this member first or donor first type of viewpoint. What's in it for me? If the donor perceives or the member perceives that they get value from what you're incentivizing them to do, they'll normally go away and do it. If there's no perception of value, it's you need to try some other forms of incentivization. Okay, Corey's got to go. Chris is saying thank you. Are there any other questions that people have? And I know also for the Dot Digital team, any questions about what we've covered? Okay, not seeing any more questions in the chat, so I think everyone's busy. It's up at 12 noon. And I'd like to thank everyone for your attention. We've taken your attention today. We need to give you something back. We're happy to share the slides from this, and we're happy to do any follow-up conversations or clarifications that you might need with you in return for your valuable attention. Thanks all for attending, and have a great day.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Bye.